Houston Arcade Expo! Let me hear you say, oh yeah!
Hello and welcome to part 3 of our Houston Arcade Expo 2021 coverage. You know, there were way too many pinball games for just one video, so let's continue taking a stroll through the floor. This here is Avengers Infinity Quest by Stern. It came out in 2020 officially, however, its release was truncated by the pandemic, so not many people have had a chance to play it until recently. I got a chance to try it in 2019 when it was in the prototype stages. They had 2 Avengers Infinity Quest tables at this year's convention. So in this game, the Avengers battle Thanos and his goons over the Infinity Gems. It pulls from both the most recent movies and the comics.
I feel like in the Avengers game, something that Saturn pointed out is you just constantly get your ball saved because it feels like you lose too easily.
Sam and Saturn were frustrated by it, and I can understand why. It's a dense game with a lot of modes and things to do. It's a bit overwhelming. One of my friends who helps with this channel knows a lot more about pinball than me. He used to sell pinball tables at one point, and he's called Avengers Infinity Quest the most execution-heavy pinball game ever made. I do think it's worth playing if you're willing to put the time into it. The next time I go to a pinball place, I'm going to be on the lookout for it. Ninja Turtles by Stern from last year. This one has you pick which of the turtles you'd like to use. There's several different modes and missions where you battle their rogues gallery. There was also a Guns N' Roses pinball game with Axl, Slash, and the current lineup, and Alien Pinball based on the movies, neither of which we got to play because the games had a high demand, but only one table each. The Alien machine was sadly out of order by Sunday. Hopefully it's just maintenance and nothing serious. Clover's playing Dialed In over there. From 2017, this game was designed by Pat Lawler, who designed Whirlwind and Funhouse for Williams, among many others. Pat Lawler's tables are noted for having all kinds of effects and props, and this one is no exception. The game has the player come across a tricked out smartphone that can do all kinds of crazy things that lead to crimes and disasters.
Alert has been issued by the early warning network. Acid rain is falling on Metro Center.
Shoot the jets.
Here's the tournament room. You had to pay a separate fee to play these machines. The competition was streamed, and some of these games were exclusive to this room. There's Diner, which is surprisingly popular in competitive play. Whitewater, the whitewater rafting pinball game. Shoutouts to anyone from Colorado. This game was designed by Dennis Nordman. Still very popular competitively. Besides being the late-night horror hostess, Elvira is also a pinball queen. She has a few pinball games. Over there, Saturn is playing Elvira and the Party Monsters, the first ever Elvira pinball game from the late 80s. This game was designed by Dennis Nordman, who would later go on to do Whitewater. This was requested by Sammy D. Best. This one's for you, Sammy. To be honest with you, this is my least favorite of the Elvira pinball games because I just tend to drain a lot on this one, but you get better with some practice. The second Elvira pinball game is Scared Stiff from 1996, made by mostly the same creative team. I enjoyed this one a little bit better. Saturn's playing it over there too. Super Score. This is a Gottlieb game from the late 60s. There's a Super Score over here, and there's a Super Score over there. And next to it is Atlantis from the 80s, based on the place that doesn't actually exist. Philina. This is a one-of-a-kind table. Phil made it as a present for his wedding. Hopefully the two of you are into pinball. Otherwise, that's a wedding present to yourself. The Bally game show from 1990. This is pretty simple for a game of its time. A lot of the games were trying to show off razzle and dazzle and special effects in the late 80s and 90s, but in spite of the simplicity, I thought it was a lot of fun. I was playing this table a few times. We're Underneath the Game Preserve tent, they have some video games here, we'll get to them later. There's Big House on the left, that's a jail-themed Gottlieb game. Gorgar, a late 70s Williams table that I'm absolutely horrible at. And all the way to the right is Paragon, a Bally game. Star Trek 2013, designed by Steve Ritchie, based on the J.J. Abrams films. I know those films can divide fans, but this game was a lot of fun for me, Sam, and Saturn. I can safely say that we all enjoyed it. Saturn was filming the ship over here, thinking it was the Enterprise. I had to tell him, sorry, I have to be a Star Trek geek here. This is the Vengeance. That's the Enterprise. Speaking of Star Trek, here's Star Trek The Next Generation, also designed by Steve Ritchie for Williams. Widely acclaimed and respected by Star Trek fans and casual and competitive pinball players. It has the cast of the show, and the classic villains like the Romulans, the Borg, and Q. It's like you're playing an episode. Now for this unit, they changed the dot matrix display to show more colors. The original game only showed orange and black.
You've just crossed over into the Twilight Zone.
Twilight Zone has 15 missions, each based on an episode of the show. It's noted for its depth and also being very difficult. Pat Lawler also designed this one. It's one of the most widely acclaimed pinball games of all time. We mostly know Capcom as the company that makes Mega Man, Street Fighter, and Resident Evil, but they did in fact experiment in the pinball industry in the 1990s, for about 2 years or so. This venture was called Capcom Coin-Op. It was ultimately a huge commercial failure for them, the games didn't sell very well, and some of them didn't even get past prototype stages. Pinball Magic was their first pinball game. With less than 1,200 produced, it's a genuine collector's item. One of our viewers from France really likes this game. This is a stage magic themed game where you battle an evil sorceress. Pinball Magic is noted for having some extremely punishing shots, and not being very beginner friendly at all. Believe it or not, there's still more pinball games to talk about. So stick around for the next part and get to see them in action. And thank you very much to everybody who contributed to this video. If you want to help us out, be sure to check out these links over here. For related videos, click over here. Otherwise, we'll see you later.